This is one of my favorite places to come on my daily walks all over my neighborhood. And I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about why that is. So my Korean learning journey was actually probably one of the biggest undertakings I have ever done in my life. And what I've come to realize is that it really took me close to the breaking point. The frustration, the embarrassment, the feelings that I had blown a lot of my chances at a future by running away to Korea right after college, the periods where I wanted to quit, and the periods of pretty deep depression, and honestly a lot darker thoughts that I had as well while going through this huge transformative growing up process all on my own. That's something I really don't want anyone to have to experience like I did. So the reason I like coming here is because it's a really good way to remind myself of a system that I learned about while I was learning Korean. If someone had sat me down and explained this system to me much earlier in my Korean learning journey, I would not have wasted so much time letting my variables in my growth formula hit zero or go negative so often. If you want to hear more about my universal growth formula, check out this video right here. But you know what? I think ultimately that time won't be wasted if I turn it into something that helps someone else. So in this video, I'm going to share a 4-step framework with you to completely restructure how you think about language learning. This mental toolkit has been passed down to us since ancient times, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in the last 2 videos in this series, I talked about first how bikes can teach us more about how we can really learn to acquire new skills. And second, how plants show us that growth is not something that you can control or make happen on your own terms. The third important thing that I shared with you over the last 2 videos is that our patience is actually something that comes from our understanding. We're more patient about the processes that we have to wait for in our lives when we understand how they actually work. So if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, discouraged, or just plain stuck in any of your language learning, especially Korean, what I'm going to share with you in this video was probably the most important thing for my language learning success. Today's ancient wisdom actually comes from the Buddha's first sermon. Specifically, the set of ideas we're going to talk about today are called the Four Noble Truths, or in Korean, 사성제. The Four Noble Truths are essentially a framework to explain the human experience. Now, I'm not a scholar of Buddhist history and philosophy, so I'm going to take a little bit of liberty and be a little bit flexible with some of the nuance here. That being said, I still think that these ideas map very well to how to be successful on your Korean language learning journey. All right, so what are these Four Noble Truths? Well, in Korean, it's 4 simple characters. 고, 집, 멸, 도. The first of these 4 truths is that in our lives and on our journey, we will experience 고. Now, this character gets used in other Korean words you may already know, like 고생, or 고통, or 고민. In English, it's generally translated as a few different things because it's all of them. Suffering, unsatisfaction instead of dissatisfaction, stress, or like a general feeling of unease. So on our journey, we will experience 고, this lack of satisfaction. So here's some examples of how we experience this. Feeling disappointed when we make mistakes, being treated like an outsider, anxiety about whether or not we're using our time effectively, comparing ourselves to others and feeling discouraged because of it, fear before taking tests or just using the language in general. With each of the 4 truths also comes a task, and the task for 고 is to simply understand it. We need to learn what it feels like so we can recognize when we're feeling it or causing it, and by doing so, develop the skill of not getting caught off guard when we experience it. In other words, we will experience 고, and we need to learn to perceive what it is. The second truth in this system is that 고 has a cause called 집, and the usual English translations for the concept of 집 is craving or attachment, sometimes even ignorance. It's the craving for things to change when we're unhappy, or our attachment to things staying the same when we are happy. It's also our ignorance and lack of acceptance of how things truly are, which is how it leads to causing us 고. In our language learning context, it's the attachment we have to our own idea of how the process should be happening and what progress should look like. It's a craving for certain outcomes, regardless of whether or not they're realistic or even possible. Or in even more meta terms, 집 is the ignorance of or resistance to the way that things truly work. So the task that comes with this second truth is to abandon our 집. And no, don't abandon your house, because you're still going to have to pay property taxes. So if we improve our ability to perceive gu, the next step is learning how to intuit the things that cause it. So the framework diagnoses the main cause as 집, and our task is letting it go. But not just arbitrarily. We do it because letting it go is accepting reality. Is this all starting to sound familiar? Like I said in the other video, we have to learn how to balance on a bike if we actually want to ride it. Pursuing our desire to look like we're riding on a bike by slapping training wheels on it is actually what's delaying us from learning how to ride a bike. Like I said in the other video, whether we like it or not, plants are not going to grow on our terms because we're not actually in control of the process. We can only create the proper conditions and let them do their thing. Not accepting this fact doesn't change reality, it just makes us unhappy. Now, the third noble truth is probably my favorite one, but it might sound a little abstract when I say it, so let me explain. The first truth is that we all experience gu, or suffering, dissatisfaction. And the second one is that the root cause of this is 집, our craving for or attachment to expectations, our ignorance of reality. So the third truth is that there is an end to 집 and gu. In Korean, this is called 멸. 멸 is a little bit less common of a character. You'll hear it in words like 소멸, or the first word I learned it from was 멸종. But in English, it gets translated as cessation or ending. Now that might all sound a little bit heavy, but this is actually the good news. Our task when it comes to 멸 is to realize it. With realize here meaning make it real. So it's kind of a simple process. If we learn to perceive gu and build our intuitive understanding of which expectations and cravings of ours are causing it, letting go of those expectations and aligning ourselves with reality should fix the problem. Aligning our expectations with reality. Is this all sounding familiar yet from the other video? So the fourth and final truth is that there is a way. To describe this way, we use the character 도. The character for 도 is actually really common. It represents the path, the way, or a method. In everyday Korean, you'll hear it in words like 도로. It's the same 도 they use for Tao in Taoism in English, but in Korean, that's called 도 or 도교. All right, so let's wrap this up and put a little bow on it. The idea here is that there are 4 truths about our language learning journey. 구, 집, 멸, 도. We will experience negativity on our journey. It has a root cause. It can be fixed, and there is a structured way to fix it. So when it comes to this final truth, the task obviously is to follow the path. Now the path itself is not something we're going to get into in this video because I just want to talk about this structure. But all of the stuff that makes up the path is usually called in English the Noble Eightfold Path. This may be something you've heard of before. I know I definitely heard of it before I learned about any of the specifics of this. It's usually represented by using the wheel. So we'll talk about that in another one. But for this one, we've got our 4 noble truths, 구, 집, 멸, 도. So you remember my formula from the plant video and the beginning of this video? If you don't, lock in, bro. Growth equals time multiplied by consistency multiplied by proper conditions. I like to think of following this path as the way to maintain positive numbers in the consistency and proper conditions variables. It's the best way to make our learning environment and our processes align with the rules. Okay, we have our 4 truths. Now let's put them into practice. Each of the 4 truths in the framework give you something special to be more successful with your learning. I think 구 can help you zoom out. Learning that your negative experiences and negative feelings toward this process aren't unique and that you're not alone in experiencing them is really important for staying on the path, our consistency. Everyone doing this is going to have these experiences. 집 can help us to course correct. We understand the process and we know that 구 comes from when our expectations aren't aligned with it. This step helps us to identify the relationships between what we're experiencing and what's really causing it. 멸 is the affirmation. And I know some of you might be rolling your eyes at that word, but it really is important to explicitly, out loud, or in writing, I guess, remind ourselves regularly that learning a foreign language is not impossible. That thought is ultimately an unreasonable, irrational, and incorrect position to hold. You are, as much as anyone else on this planet is, capable of learning a foreign language. You just need the right conditions, time, and a little bit of consistency. 도, I think, speaks for itself. There is a structure of tasks that create the proper conditions, so if we follow the 도, we can 멸 our 집 and yeet our 구. I think the Buddha actually said that. You want to know something interesting too? The Buddha never once said, 한국말 못해요. This is because he very likely did not speak Korean. Now, I'm not religious. I don't practice at Buddhist temples. I don't do any of that kind of stuff, but I did find a lot of personal peace from learning about this system of thinking about things. I personally think a lot of what you can find in Eastern religious practice lines up very often with a lot of things we do in psychology today. I think you can find a lot of these same truths if you look at like Greek Stoic philosophy and Roman stuff, like from Marcus Aurelius or whatever. But like I said in the beginning of this video, if someone had sat me down and kind of talked me through what I was going through when I was really suffering from everything going on during my early years of learning Korean and trying to figure out what my adult life was going to be like, I would have suffered a lot less. So I hope that by sharing what I've learned with you here on this channel, I can take that suffering and turn it into something positive for someone else. If you could just take these ideas to heart, share it with someone else, and then also like, subscribe, leave a comment, and smash the notification bell, then it will all have been worth it. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.